I want to try something with you right now. Put your phone face down, mute your notifications, and for the next 30 seconds, just sit there. Don't do anything. Don't think about the video. Don't plan what you're having for dinner. Just sit in complete silence for 30 seconds. You couldn't do it, could you? Maybe you lasted 10 seconds, maybe 5. Maybe your hand was already reaching for your phone before I even finished the sentence. And here's what I want you to notice in that moment of silence. What did it feel like? Because for most people, it doesn't feel peaceful. It doesn't feel restful. It feels like something is wrong. Like a low-level alarm going off somewhere in your body, a restlessness, an itch, a pull toward stimulation so strong that sitting still for 30 seconds feels like a physical challenge. That feeling, that anxiety in the silence, that is not normal. That is not who you were born to be, and it is not who you have to stay. Think back to when you were a child, 8 years old, 9, maybe 10. You could spend an entire afternoon doing absolutely nothing. Staring at the ceiling, lying in the grass watching insects. Sitting in the backseat of a car, watching the world pass by through the window, no phone, no screen, no music. Just the world and your own mind. You were never bored. You were never anxious. You were completely content in the silence because your brain was doing exactly what it was designed to do. That version of you still exists somewhere inside you. But something happened between then and now. Something quiet, gradual, and enormously damaging happened to your brain over the past decade. And almost nobody is talking about it honestly, because the companies that caused it are worth trillions of dollars, and they would very much prefer that you never understood what they did. But I'm going to tell you everything. Exactly what they did, how it rewired your nervous system, what it is silently costing you every single day, and, most importantly, exactly how to start reclaiming your mind. Stay with me. This is going to matter. Section 1. What your brain is actually doing in silence. Let's start at the beginning. Let's start with what silence actually is, biologically, for your brain. Because most people think of silence as the absence of something. The absence of sound, the absence of activity, empty time, wasted time. Time that should be filled with something productive. That is completely backwards. Silence is not the absence of activity in your brain. When external stimulation drops, when the noise stops, when the screen goes dark, when the inputs go quiet, your brain does not go idle. It shifts into a completely different mode of operation. A mode that neuroscientists have been studying intensely for the past 30 years. It's called the default mode network, the DMN. The default mode network is a collection of brain regions, the medial prefrontal cortex, the posterior cingulate cortex, the hippocampus, and others, that activates specifically when you are not focused on the external world, when you step back from the noise. Here is the best analogy I can give you. You know how your laptop has a fan that runs quietly in the background when you're not using it? It's running diagnostics, clearing cache, installing updates, backing up files, doing all the maintenance work that keeps the system healthy. But here's the thing, that maintenance can only run when the processor is not being maxed out by active tasks. Your brain works exactly the same way. The DMN is your brain's maintenance mode, and it can only activate when external stimulation is low enough to let it run. And what does the DMN actually do? What is this maintenance work your brain is trying to do every time you give it a moment of quiet? First, emotional processing. Every difficult experience, every stressful conversation, every unresolved tension from your day, your brain needs to process these, to examine them, make sense of them, neutralize their emotional charge and file them away. This is how you go from, "I had a terrible day" to "I feel okay about what happened yesterday." When the DMN never gets to run, when every quiet moment gets immediately filled with a podcast or a scroll, those experiences never get processed. They just sit there, undigested, accumulating, like a trash can that never gets emptied. Eventually, it overflows, and suddenly you're having a disproportionate emotional reaction to something small, and you genuinely don't understand why. Second, memory consolidation. Your brain does not automatically record your experiences in a usable form. It needs time to replay, organize, and integrate them, to connect new information to what you already know, and turn raw experience into actual learning and wisdom. This process requires the DMN. It requires quiet. When you fill every quiet moment with external content, your experiences stay fragmented. Information you consumed doesn't stick. You read something interesting and forget it by the next day. You have experiences, but they don't become lessons. You gather information but never develop actual insight. Third, deep creative thinking. Here is something remarkable. Your brain's most creative and original thinking does not happen when you are actively trying to think. It happens when your mind is allowed to wander without external direction. The DMN is where your brain makes unexpected connections, linking unrelated ideas together in ways you never could through deliberate, focused thought. This is why your best ideas come in the shower. It's why solutions to problems you've been stuck on suddenly appear during a walk. It's why you wake up sometimes with a clarity you didn't have the night before. These moments are not accidents. They are your default mode network doing its work, and they only happen when you stop drowning it out with noise. Fourth, your sense of self. This is the one most people never expect, and it might be the most important. The DMN is where your autobiographical thinking lives. It's where you reflect on who you are, what you value, what you want from your life, who you want to become. It's where you ask the big questions and work toward answers. When this system never gets to run, when you never sit in silence long enough to hear your own thoughts, you slowly lose contact with yourself. You stop knowing who you actually are underneath all the input and noise. You start to feel like you are just floating through life without direction or meaning, going through the motions, consuming content but not living. Silence is not wasted time. Silence is the most valuable cognitive activity a human being can engage in. You have been convinced otherwise by people who profit from your distraction. Section 2. How your relationship with silence was deliberately destroyed. So, if silence is this essential, if it is literally when your brain heals itself, grows, creates, and knows itself, why can't most people tolerate it anymore? The answer is not weakness. The answer is not laziness. The answer is not some generational character flaw. The answer is dopamine, and a trillion-dollar industry that learned how to weaponize it against you. Dopamine is your brain's anticipation chemical. Most people think of it as the pleasure chemical, but that's not quite right. Dopamine is not primarily about pleasure. It is about the anticipation of reward. It fires when something novel, unpredictable, or potentially rewarding is about to happen. In the natural world, dopamine served a crucial function. It motivated you to explore, to seek, to hunt, to discover. A rustle in the bushes triggered dopamine. There might be food, or there might be a predator. Either way, your brain rewarded your attention with a chemical hit that kept you alert and engaged with the world. Now, take that ancient biological system and feed it a smartphone. Every notification is a dopamine trigger. Something new just happened, could be important, could be nothing. The unpredictability is the whole point. Every new post as you scroll is a dopamine trigger. This one might be interesting. This one might be funny. This one might be outrageous. You don't know until you look. Every new video that autoplays is a dopamine trigger. Will this one be good? Will this one be the thing that makes your day better? Keep watching to find out. Psychologists call this a variable reward schedule, and it is the single most addictive behavioral pattern that has ever been identified. It is the same mechanism that makes slot machines impossible to walk away from. You don't keep pulling the lever because every pull pays out. You keep pulling because any pull might pay out. The uncertainty is what makes it compulsive. This was not discovered by accident. Former product designers at Facebook, Google, and Twitter have testified publicly about this. They were in rooms full of neuroscientists and behavioral psychologists whose explicit job was to identify every possible psychological lever that could be used to keep you on the platform longer. The infinite scroll was designed to remove the natural stopping point that exists in every other medium. Books have chapter breaks. TV shows have credits. Newspapers have edges. The infinite scroll has none. There is always more. The stopping point never comes unless you create it yourself, which requires willpower that your dopamine-depleted brain increasingly cannot sustain. The like button was designed to make your social behavior unpredictably rewarded. Sometimes your post gets likes immediately. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it gets a flood hours later. You can't predict it, so you keep checking, and checking, and checking. These are not features, these are extraction mechanisms, designed to extract your time, your attention, and your neurological health, and convert them into advertising revenue. And here is what happened to your brain after years of this exposure. Your dopamine system recalibrated. When your brain receives frequent, intense dopamine stimulation, it adapts by reducing its sensitivity. It raises the threshold. You need more stimulation to feel the same reward. Things that used to feel interesting and pleasurable start to feel flat. A walk in the park, a conversation with a friend, a quiet evening at home. Activities that once felt genuinely satisfying now feel boring, not because they have changed, but because your brain's reward threshold has been elevated by years of artificially intense stimulation. And silence, where there are zero dopamine triggers, now registers in your nervous system not as rest, but as deprivation. Your brain experiences silence the way a person who has been eating sugar for every meal experiences a plate of vegetables. It is not actually bad, it is actually exactly what you need. But after what you have been conditioned on, it feels wrong. A study from the University of Virginia that has been replicated multiple times found that when people were asked to sit alone with their thoughts for 15 minutes, with nothing to do and no external stimulation, the experience was so uncomfortable that the majority of participants rated it as genuinely unpleasant. Many rated it as more unpleasant than mild physical pain. People chose electric shocks over sitting quietly with their own minds for 15 minutes. That is what has been done to us. Section 3. What this is silently costing you every single day. Now, let's talk about the real cost. Because this goes so far beyond just feeling a little uncomfortable in quiet moments. The damage is deep, and it is affecting every area of your life right now, most of it invisibly, most of it in ways you have never connected back to this source. Your emotional life is destabilized. Have you noticed that you feel more emotionally reactive than you used to? That small frustrations hit disproportionately hard? That your mood is less stable, more volatile than it felt a few years ago? That you snap at people over things that shouldn't matter? This is the direct result of an emotional processing system that never gets to run. Every difficult experience you have leaves a residue, a small emotional charge that needs to be processed, examined, and released. When that processing never happens, because every quiet moment gets immediately filled with stimulation, the residue accumulates. You are not carrying today's stress. You are carrying unprocessed stress from last week, last month, last year, all of it sitting in your nervous system, all of it adding to your baseline tension, all of it making you less stable and more reactive in ways you cannot explain. You are not becoming a worse person. You are running a system that has never been maintained. The hard drive is full. Your ability to focus has been crippled. Think about the last time you sat down to do something that required genuine, sustained concentration. A complex task at work, reading a long article or book, writing something that required real thought, planning something that required you to hold multiple variables in your mind at once. How long before the urge to check your phone became overwhelming? How long before your eyes drifted? How long before your brain started generating excuses to do something else? The average American checks their phone 96 times per day. That is once every 10 minutes during waking hours. Your brain has been trained, through years of conditioning, to expect new stimulation approximately every 10 minutes. Every time you check and find something new, that behavior is reinforced. Every time the interval gets shorter, the conditioning gets stronger. Which means sitting down to do anything that requires 30, 60, 90 minutes of uninterrupted concentration now feels physically painful to your conditioned brain. You are not undisciplined. Your attention span has been deliberately shortened by systems designed to do exactly that. Your original thinking has dried up. This is a subtle one, but spend a moment with it. When was the last time you had a thought that was genuinely, completely your own? Not a reaction to something you saw on social media. Not an opinion you absorbed from a podcast. Not a perspective shaped by the algorithm's curation of what you consume. When you fill every quiet moment with other people's thoughts, you stop generating your own. Your opinions become echoes. Your beliefs become borrowed. Your worldview becomes a patchwork of other people's perspectives stitched together by an algorithm that knows, with frightening precision, exactly what will keep you engaged. Over time, you start to feel a strange emptiness, a sense that you don't know what you actually think about things, that you don't really know who you are underneath all the input. That is not an existential crisis. That is a symptom of a default mode network that has not been given space to run. Your relationships are becoming shallower. Genuine human connection requires presence. It requires the ability to sit with another person in a quiet room, across a dinner table, on a couch, in the car, and actually be there. Not half present. Not managing the conversation while one part of your brain monitors your phone. Fully, completely there. When you cannot tolerate silence with yourself, you cannot tolerate it with other people either. Silence between two people becomes uncomfortable rather than intimate. Conversations become performances, filling the air with noise rather than actually connecting. You start to feel like every relationship in your life exists at a surface level, and you cannot figure out why. The inability to be alone in silence is also the inability to be genuinely present with another person. These are the same problem wearing different faces. Your nervous system is stuck in survival mode. Chronic stimulation overload does something to your nervous system that most people never realize. It keeps your sympathetic nervous system, your fight-or-flight response, mildly but constantly activated. You were never designed to process this volume of information. The human nervous system evolved to handle the information load of a small village. Now, we are processing thousands of images, messages, news stories, and social signals every single day. Your system doesn't have an off switch for this. It responds to the volume of incoming information as a low-level threat signal. Something is always happening. Something always demands attention. The nervous system never fully de-escalates. This is why so many people today feel a background anxiety they cannot explain. Why they feel tired but cannot sleep. Why they feel overwhelmed without being able to identify a specific source. Why they feel perpetually behind, perpetually inadequate, perpetually on edge. Their nervous system has simply never been given permission to come down. Section 4. The Practical Protocol to Rebuild Your Brain. Here is what I need you to hear before we go any further. Everything I have described, the dopamine dysregulation, the attention fragmentation, the emotional accumulation, the loss of self, none of it is permanent. None of it is irreversible. Your brain is not broken. Your brain is plastic. It changes based on what you repeatedly do and experience. The same neuroplasticity that allowed it to be conditioned into this state is the same neuroplasticity that allows it to heal, but it has to be done intelligently, and it has to be done gradually. The biggest mistake people make when they realize they have this problem is going too hard too fast. They decide on Monday morning that they are going to do a full digital detox, delete all their apps, spend the weekend in complete silence, meditate for an hour a day, and by Wednesday they have relapsed completely and feel worse about themselves than before they started. This is not how nervous system recalibration works. You cannot sprint your way through this. Think of someone who has been sedentary for years, trying to get fit. If they walk into a gym on day 1 and try to run 10 miles, they will injure themselves and quit. The path forward is always: start smaller than feels necessary, build more slowly than feels productive, and trust the compounding. Step 1. The 2-minute pre-phone morning window. Every morning, before you touch your phone, before you check anything, before you do anything, you sit in silence for 2 minutes. That is the entire instruction. 2 minutes. No meditation technique required. No special breathing. No trying to clear your mind or think positive thoughts. Just sit. Be still. Be quiet. The first few mornings this will feel genuinely uncomfortable. Your hand will reach for your phone automatically. That automatic reach is not you being weak. That is a conditioned reflex. Exactly the same as flinching when something moves fast near your face. It happens before you consciously choose it. Notice it, and don't follow through on it. Just sit for 2 minutes. That is enough. What you are doing in those 2 minutes is interrupting the conditioning. You are inserting a gap between waking up and immediately flooding your dopamine system with stimulation. You are giving your brain 2 minutes in the morning to be in its natural state. Over 2 to 3 weeks, those 2 minutes will stop feeling like torture. They will start feeling like breathing room, like a moment that belongs entirely to you. That shift is neurological. That is your brain beginning to recalibrate. Step 2. The one silent daily activity. Choose one activity you do every single day: eating, commuting, walking, washing dishes, taking a shower, and do it in complete silence. Remove all the background noise. No podcast, no music, no show, no audiobook. Just you and the activity. This will feel extremely uncomfortable at first. Your mind will flood with random thoughts, worries, memories, things you've been avoiding thinking about, uncomfortable feelings you've been drowning out with noise. This is supposed to happen. This is the system activating. This is the maintenance mode running. Do not try to stop the thoughts. Do not try to direct them. Just let them run while you wash the dishes or eat your food. You are the observer. Let the mind do its work. Over time, and this will take a few weeks, those quiet moments will begin to feel different. Instead of anxiety, you will start to notice something that feels more like clarity, like relief, like finally being able to hear yourself think. Step 3. Protect the first 30 minutes of your day. The 30 minutes immediately after you wake up are the most neurologically significant 30 minutes of your day. During this window, your brain is in a state of high plasticity. Your cortisol is naturally elevated as part of the healthy wake response. Your brain is maximally receptive and impressionable. What you feed it in these 30 minutes does not just affect those 30 minutes. It sets your dopamine baseline, your stress response, and your attentional state for the next 8 to 10 hours. If the very first thing you do after opening your eyes is open social media, you are flooding your plastic receptive brain with comparison, outrage, novelty, and dopamine spikes before you have even processed being awake. You are starting your day in a state of stimulation overload that your nervous system will spend the rest of the day trying to compensate for. Protect those 30 minutes. Keep your phone in another room while you sleep if you can. Do something quiet in the morning. Drink coffee, sit outside, journal, walk, stretch. Anything that does not involve a screen. You will be shocked at how different your days feel within 2 weeks of implementing this one change alone. Step 4. The weekly 20-minute deep silence block. Once per week, take a 20-minute block of complete silence. No phone, no screens, no music, no podcasts, no inputs of any kind. You can sit, walk slowly, or lie down. You do not have to meditate in any formal sense. You just have to be silent and unoccupied for 20 minutes. The first time you do this, it will feel like the longest 20 minutes of your life. Your mind will race. You will feel restless and agitated. You will generate 100 reasons why this is a waste of time. Do it anyway. The second week will be slightly easier, the third week easier still, and somewhere around the fourth or fifth week, something will shift. The racing thoughts will slow, and in the space that opens up, genuine, original thoughts will begin to surface. Ideas you didn't know you had. Feelings you didn't know you were carrying. Solutions to problems you've been stuck on for weeks. Questions you forgot you were asking. A quiet but unmistakable sense of yourself underneath all the noise. That is your default mode network running at full capacity. That is your brain doing the maintenance work it has been trying to do for years. That is what you actually are when the noise stops. 20 minutes of genuine silence every week will do more for your creativity, emotional health, focus, and sense of identity than any productivity system, supplement, habit stack, or self-help framework on the market. I want to end this with something I think is really important. If you watched this video and recognized yourself, if you felt called out, seen, maybe a little uncomfortable, I want you to know something. This is not your fault. You did not choose to have your dopamine system hijacked. You did not choose to have your attention span eroded. You did not choose to become someone who finds silence threatening. You were handed a device at a vulnerable, formative time in your life. You were given access to platforms engineered by some of the smartest behavioral scientists in the world, whose explicit purpose was to make that device as neurologically difficult to put down as possible. And you were never told what it was doing to you. Nobody sat you down and explained, by the way, using this application for 2 hours a day will measurably reduce your attention span, elevate your baseline anxiety, fragment your emotional processing, and make it progressively harder to be alone with your own thoughts. Nobody gave you that informed consent. So the fact that your brain was affected by it is not weakness. It is physics. It is just how brains work when exposed to these systems. But here is the part that matters. You know now. And knowing changes everything. Because now, every time you feel that pull towards stimulation, every time that discomfort in the silence arises, you understand what it actually is. It is not reality telling you that something is wrong. It is a conditioned response trying to keep you in a pattern that serves the platforms and costs you your mind. And you can choose differently. Not perfectly, not all at once. Not by throwing your phone into a river and becoming a monk. Just 2 minutes tomorrow morning. Before you check anything. Before you look at anything, just sit in the quiet for 2 minutes. And notice what happens. Not just in those 2 minutes, but in the days and weeks that follow. Notice when the thoughts start becoming clearer. Notice when the emotions stop feeling so jagged. Notice when ideas start showing up from somewhere inside you that felt empty before. Notice when you start to feel, underneath all the noise, like yourself again. The most powerful thing you can do in a world designed to keep you distracted is learn to be comfortable in your own silence. That is not a small thing. That is reclaiming your mind. And your mind is worth reclaiming. If anything in this video changed how you see something, share it with someone you think needs to hear it. And if you want to understand more about what overstimulation is doing to your nervous system, what it's doing to your motivation, your sleep, your emotional regulation, the next video is going to go even deeper. I'll see you there.